So what was inside the Ice Age backpack? Imagine, if you will, it's 10, 20,000 years ago. You are part of those early hunter-gatherers that are quickly expanding all throughout the world, and you have to move to a camp that is quickly getting encroached by inclement weather and snow and rain, and you want to move south to a warmer environment. Because what you carry in your pack is essentially your life, your livelihood. Everything and anything that you could own will go on your back as you start to walk. Today, most modern backpackers, campers, hunters carry survival kits and a whole array of tools, from quick boiling stoves to axes and hatchets and saws, canvas tarps, tents, sleeping bags, utensils, water bottles, water filters, ponchos, poncho liners, pocket knives, slingshots, just about everything else. And for most people today, those are necessity, those are a requirement. But 20,000 years ago, your life depended on what you carried in your backpack. It's hard to determine what everyone would carry in their backpack 20,000 years ago because we have no archaeological evidence of this. Most of the things that you would have made a backpack out of, probably some wood and natural fibers and different animal hides, will clearly rot away over time. The oldest archaeological find that we have is Ötzi the Iceman's backpack. Ötzi was a 5,000-year-old Neolithic kind of mummy that was found in Italy in an ice sheet by a couple hikers in the early 90s. And what they found on Ötzi was his bow, his arrows, even some of the food that he had eaten in his last meal, but they also found his pack. Now that is the only real archaeological evidence we have of somebody 5,000 years ago and what they had on their pack and what they were carrying. And in Ötzi's case, he was out for kind of a couple days. He was out hunting. Ötzi wasn't moving his tribe, his clan, his people from one camp to another. But there's a difference between what I carry on 1 or 2 days out in the bush in Ötzi's case, or what I would use to carry all of my livelihood. Everything that I have from point A to point B, probably over a couple 100 miles. So we have Ötzi's, and then we also have what I've carried. Obviously, we're gonna have a pack itself, a form of food, different tools, clothing, bedding. What about something like sewing needles? What about fire sets and the means of carrying fire? As I have jumped headfirst into the flintnapping world for many years, in the primitive living world, I've gained the ground truth of the things that I actually carry in my packs, whether it's a soft pack or even a modern pack employing some primitive gear. So I've taken my own personal experiences, some of the things that Ötzi the Iceman carried, and said, what would I need to walk from point A to point B, maintain my health, maintain my abilities to get food, ensuring that I have all the tools that I would need to hunt, to gather, to scavenge, to build a shelter, to ward off potential predators and threats. What are those things? So this is my Ice Age backpack. Right here is everything, based on my opinion, my assessments, somebody 20,000 to 10,000 years ago would have been carrying in their backpack. Over here on the right, and this is just out of shot, but this is kind of bear cape. It can be thrown over the shoulders and kind of worn like a little bit of a rain covering. I believe something like this, some sort of readily accessible hide, would have been carried on the outside of the pack to kind of deal with any sort of inclement or harsh weather. We definitely have in that weapons kind of field, we have that atlatl. This is the dart, this is the actual thrower, and here are a couple force shafts. One obviously would have been kind of loaded at the go for any sort of opportunities that could present themselves as far as hunting, but there absolutely would have been some force shafts carried inside the pack, pre-made for once they got to their final destination, they can employ them. Now, it's hard to say as far as chopping and cutting tools. I do believe some sort of hafted axe might have been used in the form of, cutting wood or even processing game. A hafted axe makes sense to me. I have no doubt that somebody 20,000 years ago during that last ice age would have been carrying a hafted axe. A form of sinew. This is all backstrap sinew. This is cordage. This could have been used in conjunction with the actual atlatl darts for hafting purposes. Can be used in sewing if they were employing any sort of sewing needle. A good form of backstrap sinew. Left in this sort of form, absolutely would have been carried on those long hauls, kind of nomadic, following the herd sort of events. A lot of these items, especially these smaller items we haven't quite gotten to, would have been carried in a variety of pouches or little storage bags. When we look at my pack frame, as well as all these small items, they have to be carried in something, kind of put into a compartment, obviously wrapped up in a hide, latched to the pack, but you have to have pouches for the small stuff. Starting at the bottom of the table, this right here is what I like to kind of call tradables or some of the things that they could have worked from. Tusks or teeth or rare kind of stones and minerals that they could have came across, random teeth. I mean, these could have been made into beads, or they could have came across another nomadic tribe and traded with them. But something that they could use to kind of sit around a campfire, craft, make beads, ornamentals, some sewing equipment, a couple bone needles, and a sewing awl, working in conjunction with my sinew, as well as any additional cordage. This allows to obviously sew hides together, make any repairs to their clothes, punch holes, thread cordage. A simple sewing kit would have absolutely been carried with them. All right, right down here, we absolutely have kind of that field flint napping sort of kit. Real light hammerstone, a couple hand pads, a larger billet, and definitely some pressure flakers and some small billets. These tools are specifically designed to address these stone tools here. If we take the theories of stone tool caching as well as finding other hammerstones once you get to a location, there's no need to carry everything. Why carry a huge hammerstone when it's very likely you'll be able to find one? But it makes sense if I need to pop some flakes off this little hand blade, I have the tools on hand to address that requirement. These tools right here make sense from people are moving from point A to point B from a different hunting grounds. They're following the herds or there's a seasonal change. Having these makes sense. Obviously, a main utility knife, a main blade that would have been carried for any number of tasks in its sheath, a couple preforms or bifacial forms. This could be worked into a larger spear point or kept as hand blade. This could be turned into a knife or a large spear point for hafting, along with a couple small projectile points to replace any broken atlatl dart tips, a small little cutting tool. It's a little butted hand blade with that cortex left on the bottom, a friction fire set. This is a brand new hand drill friction fire set. Why I chose to make it a fresh one, you wouldn't want to go out on a long walkabout or do some sort of migratory path with maybe only one or two spots to burn. You'd want that ideal, fresh from the start, long-term friction fire set so you could make fire. With that fire, definitely comes a form of tinder, whether it's some sort of bark. I'm sure there could have been tinder collected along the way, but in those kind of adverse situations, having some dry tinder on hand makes sense. Along with a polypore that could have been used to carry fire from point A to point B. It's a slow burner, it smolders, it's easy to take a chunk that is smoldering, drop it into a tinder bundle, and blow it into action. Over here, these two pieces are my fishing kit. This is the kit full of feathers, line, hand lines, weights, sinkers, hooks, pieces of shell that could be used as lures, of different hooks and lures that would have been used. Traditional fishing hooks, as well as some gorge hooks and some little hourglass sinkers. A fishing kit might not have been universal to everybody that was in that group, but for those that know that they can rely on fishing as a very easy means of getting food, it makes sense to carry just something that can help you in that process of fishing. Over here, definitely pine pitch glue. Yes, it could have been made from the landscape, but again, when we're mobile and we're nomadic and we're following our herd or we're doing a seasonal camp change, you want to have these resources on hand. This is used in hafting your atlatl dart points. This is used to connect fletchings on your atlatl darts, but it is that natural glue and it makes sense. Up top, we have some pre-made cordage in all forms. Again, this kind of ties into that backstrap sinew, whether it was to tie something to your pack, to do some fishing with, or to hang something or secure something. Cordage was an absolute. It makes sense. You kind of see up here, I have a couple different wraps. This first one is just a loincloth. This is my loincloth. I've worn this before for years, and it's just a simple covering of the lower extremities. These are a couple bark tan hides. These guys, multiple purposes. It's kind of like having that junk cloth or that patoo. These would secure your bags, your little storage bags, and then secure to the pack. Some small animal hides to sit on, to cover up with, to repair clothing. If you have tanned animal hides, you wouldn't leave them. You're obviously going to bring them with you, but bringing some animal hides absolutely makes sense. And then this guy right here is much larger. This is more along the lines of bedding, something to wrap yourself up in. This is just a goat hide mixed with a bighorn sheep hide. Having a large piece of hide to wrap yourself up in, construct shelters, anything to that extent would be absolutely something that would have been carried. As we look to the top, this right here is essentially just a food pouch. Doesn't mean that they wouldn't be hunting or gathering any food along the way, but this is some sustainment items. In here, there's some dried meats, a whole bunch of dried berries. All these things would have been smart options to bring with them. This is sustainment. I mean, as they're moving along and they're following herds, they're definitely hunting. But if there's a couple days where food is somewhat scarce, having some food resources, some nuts, some berries, dried meats, some rendered fats would have been something that was brought along as well. Definitely an aspect of horn or antler. It's not to say that they couldn't come across these things or find these things when they're moving from point A to point B, but if this is an ideal material for making spurs on atlatls or making needles or fish hooks or doing any sort of kind of leisurely carving, it's relatively light and it gives them the opportunity to have something on hand. Now this right here is a little skull. When I was contemplating the ideas of water, I have no doubt that people 10, 20,000 years ago, absolutely without a shadow of a doubt, needed water. But was water readily accessible in the form of streams, rivers, and lakes? More importantly, it was probably very, very clean. So it kind of reduces down to more of a cup sort of mentality, a way to scoop water out and drink from it. Last but not least, is the pack. Now this pack is more of a pack frame with a couple shoulder straps as well as some lashings to secure all of this gear to this pack. Now why I think it was more of a pack frame and not a soft pack like this, which I've carried, but these aren't meant for long hauls. These aren't meant for carrying a lot of weight. A pack frame is going to be able to support the weight that you're putting on the pack frame. More importantly, it's going to allow a person to go a lot longer and a lot farther in what they're carrying. Something like this could have been used in scouting or kind of short trips or hunting trips and could be put on a pack frame. But I don't think for those long hauls, those long nomadic trips, they weren't hauling all of their equipment and all their gear with a heavy pack frame. Let's pack it up. All right, that right there is the pack. Now that doesn't mean extra hides, whether it's large elk hides, even the bison hide that this pack is sitting on, couldn't have been strapped to this pack and carried. Yeah, was there probably going to be maybe another big rolled up hide sitting here? Absolutely. We don't really know, archaeologically speaking, because like I said earlier, the oldest backpack ever found was Boots of the Iceman's, dating to about 5,000 years ago. These guys in the hand, this probably on a belt wrapped around a loincloth or whatever sort of waist wrap they might have been carrying. Pack on the back, rain covered, just like a modern pack for those immediate uses in inclement weather, an axe in case you have to cut through and chop, and then all of your resources are on the inside. When they're making their yearly trips or those nomadic trips, following the herd or changing hunting grounds from one season to another, this would have been something along the lines of what they would have carried on their person. I do want to add, this winter I'll be taking this exact pack along with all of my animal hide clothing and going out into the wild during some inclement weather, some cold weather, and living off the land. It will essentially be another Ice Age-esque sort of adventure for me. I like to live it, I like to breathe it, and I like to experience it firsthand, ultimately getting that ground truth. All right, that's all I got. I appreciate all of you watching. Let me run my mouth, and I'll see you in the bush. Thanks for watching.